Welcome to Mr. Jamble's Ultimate Campaign Guide. Just by following this video you'll become at least 10 times better. So let's get started. You pick a character and you spawn here at a riverbank. Well, right now you can do almost nothing. You have no weapon, you can punch but it doesn't do much damage, and you can dodge, which is really important to be able to dodge. Whenever you start out, you get a weapon from the zombie over here. And you can also look at the skill tree, which is astonishingly big when you're new at the game. But there is a really good solution when you're new at the game, and that is you follow a build guide. I put it in a pinned comment down below, and I also put it in the description, a Maxroll. They are really good with making starter builds for players, and you'll have a great time starting out there. And then looking forward in the future, you can maybe make your own build, or you can look at some other build on YouTube or something, you know what I mean? But that will get you set at the very beginning, that you're not wasting your time, you're making a lot of currency, you're speeding through the campaign. Like, it will be huge. You'll see. If you're like skipping out on the first chest at the beginning zone, killing the boss will be very difficult if you're new, and that's what killed a lot of people. When you start out, you have to beat this boss right here. The easiest way to beat him is just hit him. When he charges towards you, you have to dodge, and then he's staggered and you can shoot again. This attack you could also dodge, but you don't really have to. Like, it's super easy. After this, he's gonna do the same skill. You see? It's the same pattern. If you already know it once, you basically know it for the future. He also is staggered whenever he does that. Right now, he's gonna use that skill again. You see? And that's that. That's basically it. Just being able to dodge makes life a lot easier. Also, whenever you start, you get items that are unidentified. Well, you have wisdom scrolls, but later you can use the hooded man to like unidentify everything in the act, which is really nice. But until then, you should just use the wisdom scrolls and hopefully you get some good decent gear. There is 4 different grades of items, which is basically the normal grade, which is white. You got the blue grade, which is magic. Then you got the yellow grade, which is rare. And then you got the orange grade, which is unique. Unique is not always the best item, but it has really good items. The best slot for the end game is having all rare and then 1 or 2 uniques. Sometimes 3 or 4 uniques. Let's talk about the skill gems. So basically you can choose between certain skills you can use, but I recommend using skills for your designated weapon. So let's say I'm playing with a bow. Really good starting things are lightning arrow, lightning rod, fine arrow is really good. Then I go down here, I don't really like any of this. And then this is also like, gas arrow is really good. I go down below here. Rain of arrow is pretty good. Tornado shot is pretty good. Magnetic sulfur is really good. Like, you have to like look at whatever fits your book, whatever you like to play. There's mace skills, elemental skills, there are crossbow skills, quarterstaff skills, occult skills, and bow skills. The funny thing about the bow is with a bow you can also use elemental skills. So let's say you have a bow, you can also use spark for instance, which doesn't make any sense. You can use your bow like you're using a wand or staff. I don't understand how that functions, but it works. Let's talk about a little bit of quality of life. If you go to options and you go to the game, you got a filter. You can disable or enable crossplay, which is really nice. You can hide filtered ground items. I recommend you to do the default allocation at free for all and the level down scaling disabled. Because when somebody joins you and it's disabled, he can help you a lot easier. Also, if you go like here, you have sharpness, scene. You don't really have to touch any of that, to be honest. I mean, you can max render this if you're on PC. You can upgrade the advanced settings to the highest that you can do. The general settings, like let's say this is like kind of useless, but if you go to the landscape transparency, this basically affects your map. So let's say I do this and I max it out and I open my map, you can see that I can barely see shit on my map, you know what I mean? But then whenever I put it down, look, there it's a lot more that you can see things on your map. You can also zoom in your map if you're blind. If you're blind, you can zoom in your map. I also recommend having the transparency, like you can do it max, so you can also see like the tiny gaps, but you can also just lower it like this, and then you can basically see it better. I like to have it like fully zoomed out like this, so I can see like a couple of things, but that's just my preference. There's also sound inputs for sounds. Later when you're playing this game a lot, you might cut out the music, or you might cut out the ambient sound and music, and then you listen to some music while playing the game. In your input, this does not matter a lot. You can do navigation speed, which is basically that when you're with your mouse on your screen, it goes a lot quicker, which is really nice. You have notifications. I recommend you to turn on your gold invitation one and chat. I also recommend you to like put in certain things, like let's say trade request, have this on. It's really nice to have on. And then whenever you have certain things that you don't like, turn it off. But I like to have that on, in my opinion. A couple other things that are very nice to know. If you go to general, you can activate show life and mana, which basically shows the amount on your bar. Like, let's say I go to my health bar, which you can see on the left bottom of my screen. You can see my shield and life. And on the right side, you can see my mana and spirit. I basically do that by showing this. You see, I turn it off and on, which is really nice. Show the flask buffs and icons is really nice. Hide the reservation. You can turn this on, which makes it a lot easier. If you're using multiple things, like let's say you're using life, you're using energy shield and mana as defensive barrier, then I recommend you to hide this. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. Highlights are really nice. And if you go to chat over here, what I recommend you to have on is global and guild chat. You can have trade chat on, but if you look at the chat itself, sometimes you see the trade chat, they're just trading like random things that don't really matter. But it gives you like a general understanding how much certain things are worth, and that's why I like to have trade on. So I can have like a picture in my head how much certain items are worth for whenever I have it and I want to sell it. This is really, really nice starting information when you start out the game. Whenever you start in town, you basically go to town whenever you level up because there's multiple shops. This guy over here basically sells you armors, weapons, and stuff.
Yes.
This woman over here sells you all the magic stuff. Sometimes you can have a +1 on certain things. Sometimes you can get rare items like this, for instance. Sometimes you see really, really nice items. I recommend you to check the store whenever you level up. It sells you potions, rings. Those rings can also be resistance rings, which is really nice. Over here is basically the gambling trader. Whenever you level up, you get gambling points, and then you can trade it for whatever fits your need. Normally, there's also an NPC here when you start out. Then you got the hooded man. The hooded man basically identifies items for you whenever you need to do it. You unlock the hooded man, like I said before, by going to that tree by Growlwood and just beat the Radville. Then go back to Growlwood after going to town, and then you basically have this hooded man, and he can identify items for you whenever. Point refund skill points whenever you want. You can change it, you can remove it, everything. So this NPC is essentially one of the best NPCs in the whole game. Let's talk about the waypoint. So when you start out and you're in the first town, The waypoint is basically telling you whatever you have to do. So let's say it tells you to go to Clearfell, it tells you to go to Growwood, it tells you to beat certain things on the map. If you look on the map, there's like those boss icons and they give you certain stats. For instance, this gives you cold res. If you go up here, this you have to basically defeat to activate the tree to then have the hooded man. Right here, you have to kill the endless lemon to be able to progress. You have to defeat the ritual altar. Because if you defeat the ritual altar, you get 30 spirit. Then you have to beat the druid, which is pretty nice, which can give you some rare items. And then you got the crowbar, which basically gives you +1 to your passives, which is really nice. Then you go here. This drop circle doesn't matter too much. Then you got Unta's hut, pretty nice because it gives you +1 to passives. Then you go to the workshop. This doesn't matter. And the executioner you basically have to defeat, which is also really nice, so you can progress further. And then you have the manor, Oakham Manor. Basically, here is where the boss is, the end boss. So let's go over everything. Then I'm gonna give you guys a couple of tips for the executioner. For the executioner, the most important thing is that you don't stand still. As long as you don't stand still and you just attack him, you dodge a little bit to the left and right, you beat him really easily. But if you stand still and he pulls down that anvil in your face, you're one-shotted and dead. So that is the recommendation I can give you for executioner. I'll now teach you also how to dodge certain skills. Let's say this witch over here. She places a circle on the ground, and whenever she does, you have to dodge out of it. Or not stand in it, because if you stand in it, you take a lot of damage. In the first area, you have this witch boss over here. I recommend you to fight this after you're like level 4 or 5. And you can farm some nice gear from her. So the core drops from this boss are basically unique items, magic items, rare items, and currency. You can get, for instance, an Exalted Orb from this. An Exalted Orb is used to buy everything in the game. Weapons, belts, accessories, skills, and then Jeweler's Orbs to get more like points on your skills, like sockets. Everything can be bought with Exalted Orbs. And what people do is basically farm this boss over and over and over again. I'm gonna teach you how you do that. You basically teleport back to town. On PlayStation, basically you hold X on the map, but for you it's basically holding left mouse and just holding it in. And then you have instances. You can create a new instance and then you teleport to the area basically, but in a new instance, so you can beat the boss again. You can do this over and over again. When you're at a waypoint, the boss is always straight up. So if you run like in a straight line up, you'll reach the boss. Like look, there I am again. When you're at Growwood, you have this tree over here. When you start out here, there's basically a hooded man stuck in this tree and you have to free him. You free him by going to certain places. For instance, you go to the Red Veil, and in the Red Veil, you basically beat the Rust King. You can also kill the Forgotten Witch, which is nice, but here you have to already learn how to dodge. And then you get the Bramblegast, which is a really easy boss to kill early on. This is like a free boss. If you have farmed a little bit of gear from that witch, you can easily beat those bosses, no problem. After that, you go to the Grim Triangle, which is basically located, well, underground. But it's here basically, Grim Triangle. You have to go through here and beat one boss, which is really easy to beat. And then you can continue. This boss over here is called the Rotten Druid. And after that, after you kill him, you can go to the cemetery. The cemetery is a really nice area to go to, and it had also multiple bosses, like let's say the Draven, and it has the Asina boss. I'm gonna show you. Basically, here you get the cemetery of the Eternals. This is a really easy area to beat. You just have to beat those two bosses. And after you beat those two bosses, you have to go through this gate. Once you go through this gate, well, basically a boss will spawn here because you opened it, you got the key. This boss is really annoying. I'll teach you a couple things that you need to know against this boss. He shoots basically a soul up in the air, and then you have to dodge, because if you don't dodge you take half your life as damage. If you stand up really close to him, you can easily like dodge his skills, which is really nice to know. After that, there's also multiple things you can do to him. You can stun him, you can freeze him, and make life a lot easier. And if you're a minion build, I wish you the best of luck, because then what you have to do is run to the back here, and just sit down here while the minions attack, and then just move circles so that the boss will basically move around with you. Those are a couple of tips I can give you on this boss, which are really nice. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a couple of tips on this boss, for instance. So there's a couple cool skills, which basically making 3 of those things you can dodge out, and then a big thing. You just dodge it. You can like easily dodge her attacks. Like, it's just a joke. She basically also have a circle where she basically summons a bone circle and you're in the middle of it. And you have to dodge out of it because there's like free space in between that circle. I recommend you not to fight her here. I recommend to fight her like a little bit here, because then you have the whole circle. If you defeat her, well, if you're fighting around this and she plays a circle on you, there's a chance that the opening gap is like down there and you cannot go out of it, so you're stuck in that circle. When you're in Orca Matter, I recommend you to kill the monsters as quickly as you can, and don't stand in this blood. You see this blood? If you stand in this, you take damage to your energy shield and your HP bar. So basically try to avoid it or dodge over it. That makes your life a lot easier, because when you start out you don't have that much health, and those bloods on the ground do a lot of damage. Also, when you go to Orca Manor, there's this boss over here. You can basically talk to this thing, he will spawn, and once you kill him, which is really easy, you just dodge around, but I just one-shot it for now. You can basically get 30 HP from killing him, which is really nice. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of tips on the first act boss. First, he charges you with his normal strikes, which is easily dodged by just running around. I'm just showing you guys a couple of things that he does. He turns into a wolf, and he does that attack. He spawns minions, which you can basically easily kill for free. And then, whenever you do like full damage on them, he'll basically go into the second stage. But first he has to do some like random stupid attacks that does nothing.
I'll find someone who can. Goodbye, husband.
You manipulative whore! How dare you abandon?
This is like one of his big attacks, which is easily dodged. It's just like, this boss fight is so clunky. I don't know who came up with it. It's not great. This is a free dodge. Basically, if you dodge up and down the whole time like this, you take no damage from that NPC or boss. And once he's done, he's gonna jump in here. And he'll just jump on your face. This is a really annoying attack. Dodge this. You don't want to get frozen. You don't want to get hit by that. That's the skill he uses right after that. He just plunges in and then ice you again. You dodge this. Dodge. Just keep on dodging. And that's that. But this boss is very clunky, because after certain attacks, you basically get stuck in his skill, and he just attacks random. Like, he attacks the wall, man. Like, it's pretty bad. And sometimes he's just stuck in his health bar. Like you have him really low and he just keeps on going. Early on when you start this game, resistance also don't really matter too much. But when you start to go into Act 2, Act 3, like Act 2 and Act 3 is where you need resistance a lot more. In Act 1, it really doesn't matter too much yet. But if you can get your hands on a little bit of resistance before going into Act 2 and 3, you're gonna die a lot less. You get it from your gears, basically from farming the witch. You can also get it from gears from the stores. And you can also just buy it if you drop some Exalted Orb and trade it with other players on the trade website. I'm also gonna put down in the description a link to the trading website. I'm gonna put in links for Maxroll, which is basically for builds, and also for well, Pedal Exile crafting. I'm also gonna put down below because those links will help you a lot in this game. So I hope you guys like this Act 1 video that I made. And we're gonna make this for every single act probably. So you kind of like know what to do, some tips and tricks, how you can defeat certain enemies a lot easier, all those kind of things. If it's like an easy boss or an easy monster, I don't really bother going over it. But if it's like something multiple people always died on, then I'll cover it. Keep slaying exiles and have a great day.